Hello, my name is Ryu, or people call me Riv. I don't really care which ever. Welcome back. This is my first ever story time related video, talking about my actual life. Something very significant, not just with the last video where I was just talking about something happening with one of my family members. So yeah, hello. Today we're gonna be talking about I have gone 20 years of my life without realizing that I was autistic. So yeah, let's begin. So starting with kindergarten and through elementary school, I would sometimes misunderstand things and either make it seem like they were not that big of a deal, or they were far scarier than they actually were. I'd say I probably would more so make things scarier than they were than like make them not a big deal in my head. For example, when I was in kindergarten, we would have, after recess, the bell would ring, and there was one entrance to the school that everyone would crowd up at, and it was really overwhelming for me. Especially since it didn't really seem like there were any lines being formed. To me, it was just everyone piling up, and I was very confused and stuff, and I would always have to go into a random line, a class that wasn't even mine, and then I would just walk back to the classroom on my own when we were all let inside. I could definitely see a bit of anxiety in there as well, now that I'm thinking about it. I guess another thing that happened was with, it was also in kindergarten. It was gym class, and I remember the gym teacher saying something about how running compared to jogging would cause something with your heart, and I didn't really notice at the time, but he was talking about how if you ran as fast as you could, you're more likely to tire yourself out and get heart palpitations. But for some reason I misunderstood him, and I was thinking oh, my heart's gonna expand and expand until it bursts out of my chest. And I don't know why I thought of that. I guess I was just a really scared kid. Especially since I was in a household where I had a controlling father figure. Another thing was that I just had a different sense of humor, or I didn't really pick up on other people's sense of humor. One thing is that some of the jokes people just made, I didn't really find funny. It's not that they were being edgy or anything, it's just I didn't understand how they were funny, to me at least. Or they were joking, but I didn't understand it was a joke. They would say something, and they said it in a way that made it sound to me as a literal child, sounded like they were not joking to me, and I was oh, okay, and they were oh no, I was joking, and that caused a few strains on really early friendships I had. Another thing is that people would take my jokes too seriously. I would be joking about something, and to them it sounded like I was making a clear statement about something, and I was no, I'm just joking, and I wouldn't understand why it was this way. Another thing was that people would also make fun of me if I tried making a joke. For example, I used to make these paper comics, and I would show them to my friends, and they would say I was weird and said they were not funny because I was autistic, and I just didn't realize it. During elementary school, my mom gave me one of those Amazon Kindles, and at that time when Five Nights at Freddy's was rolling around, and that became my first hyperfixation ever. It's like the FNAF games, and I would play the FNAF games like on my Kindle like a lot. And I would played FNAF like so much that like I would be like night 8 on the first game, and I would stop at that. I can also see like this being how like my ADHD started as well, since you don't really give a child like an iPad or anything at that age. I was also like watching like 30-minute TV shows too, like My Little Pony, which like at some point became like a hyperfixation alongside Five Nights at Freddy's. But like I'd say I focused a lot more on Five Nights at Freddy's than I did with My Little Pony. I had an OC, a FNAF OC, and I named her Nightmare Candy. And like I would ship her with like Springtrap because that was like me being like a Springtrap fanboy. And I would draw like them together and stuff. I don't really have any childhood pictures of them, unfortunately. I would show them if I could, but like I think it's best if I don't show them because they're weird and cringy. At like the start of middle school, I was still liking Five Nights at Freddy's. But like around the 8th grade is when I first got Tumblr. And I had a Tumblr page, and I also, like, coming out of my FNAF phase, I started to really like the game Undertale. And I eventually would get into Undertale a lot, and I would sometimes, like, go on Tumblr, and I would look up, like Undertale-related things on Tumblr, and just, like, scroll through and, like, look up all the artwork that people posted, just because I really like looking at Undertale stuff, you know, especially if other people, like, drew artwork of the game. I would also draw Undertale, and I would create like various AUs. Like I had this one AU where like it was all like the Undertale characters from like different AUs living in like a giant like mansion together for some reason. I don't know. I think this is a very clear sign that I was really autistic because that is like really random and bizarre. I also had a AU that was called like Scientale at first, but eventually I just changed it to Ensuretail. It was basically Undertale, but like a lot more detailed. And like I'm trying to remember what it was because I actually did not write any of this down or anything. I just kept it in my head and would draw like artwork of like the characters in like this AU that I have. But like I think I remembered like making like Sans like kind of a missionary for like Asgore and like getting the human souls, which like I'll be honest can make for like a really interesting like story. I don't know if there's anyone out there who has already done that, but that was just like my idea. I also had an Undertale OC. Originally her name was Night-Chan, but I actually recently like revised her, and now her name is Bomb, and I would like ship her with Frisk a lot, and I would draw her and Frisk together. Originally she was a cis female, but like in my change I decided to make her a trans woman. And I also made Frisk a demi boy because I'm also a demi boy and I would really like to see some demi boy rep. The start of like high school I still liked Undertale, but that was also when I started liking a game called Deltarune, and I would draw a lot of Deltarune as well, as you can imagine. I had another OC. Her name is Jackie, and like this revised reference sheet I have of her. Originally, I was like shipping her with like Chris. And like I would draw her and Chris together like a lot, and like I still kind of like Deltarune today, if I'm being honest. Like, you know, especially with like the recent chapters they released, like 3 and 4. Along with like drawing and stuff, I would go on Tumblr again and like look up Deltarune and stuff and just look at like all the artwork that people made of like the characters and stuff. That was when I was like really on and off Tumblr. Like I think I started using DeviantArt more around that time to like post Undertale artwork I made. Sometime during high school, I started liking this other game that was recently made called Friday Night Funkin', and I just think this is like the epitome of my autism because I really started to like the mods. more specifically, I discovered a mod called Mid-Fight Masses. I would draw like Sarv and Ryvv with this other character I have named Elisa, which like now is a character for Ryuko, and she's kind of a joke character now. Like, she's not really constrained to one singular universe, and she's just kind of like there. There was also the same character as the Mid-Fight Masses mod had a mod where you could like go against this other character named Sulliver. Now I started to really like this character Sulliver, and I would draw him and Ryu a lot together, which like Ryu was now my new main OC. I would draw them together, like ship art and stuff, and it got to like my obsession with him got to the point where like in like a jewelry class I was taking in high school, I made a literal metal pendant of him as like a necklace. And I would wear this necklace, and like I think this is very much like a clue that I was very like autistic, and with these obsessions I had with these characters that I really adored to where I was making like not only like artwork of them, but like physical objects that like my grade counted on. And I would say I liked a Friday Night Funkin' a lot more. Like my phase with Friday Night Funkin', like how I was fixated on it, like lasted maybe even longer than I liked Undertale. That's saying a lot, considering that like I was really like hyper fixated on this, and I had like a lot of fun like making artwork of these characters like interacting with each other, and like drawing ship art of like Ryu and other characters as well. So then like after high school I was going to community college, and that's when I was coming out of my Friday Night Funkin' phase, and I was going into another game that was recently released called The Coffin of Andy and Lele. And I think everyone knows how like controversial that game is. Like I've spoken about it before on this channel, and like my criticisms with it, especially like the third chapter. Like, I mean, I didn't really have like a big issue with like the first chapter at first, but like I had more issues with the second one, and now the third one's here. And this is not a T-call rant video, so I'll just move on. Just know that I really liked the character Andrew Graves from that one. And I was also like starting to like Julia as well. I'd say this game is still my current fixation. I would draw Andrew and Ryu together a lot, and like I thought about making like a mod because other people had made mods of the game, and so I was like, oh, I can just put like Ryu in there and like no more incest, yay! I have some AUs of these characters. Like, I'm not really going to share, but I just know that, like, one of them is with, like, the characters in Ryugor. Like, they're just in there, and they, like, find Ryu and stuff. That one, I don't really, like, plan on making anything. That's just kind of something that's, like, in my head. I also discovered, like, other Nimue games, which, I'll be honest, are, like, less controversial than the current one. So, like, if you don't really like the most recent game they made, I understand. I do encourage those to like check out the other games and like see what they think of them as well, because I do think they're like really charming as well. But like, having autism and all that isn't really that fun. Like, I've just been talking about my hyperfixations, but I would have meltdowns. Like, especially when I was in elementary school, I would have meltdowns that, like, it wasn't just, like, regular crying. It was, like, me breaking my own things and, like, pulling out my hair. And when I was, like, in high school and college, the meltdowns quickly escalated to me, like, hitting myself and, like, hitting my head, which is, like, kind of dangerous. I wouldn't be surprised if I had like some minor brain damage because I would just like hit my head and it would really hurt. Again, I was also misunderstood a lot. I think I've gone over that and why I was And like during my time in like school and stuff, I was just treated like I was a nuisance some of the time. That was especially the case in elementary school, where teachers, like, they were not really good teachers, and they didn't really know how to like properly handle like a meltdown like mine. And I had also done certain school programs as well, which, and like I still wasn't diagnosed, but like I didn't really realize I was in these certain programs until like looking back on it now, where I had to do like tutoring when I was like in 3rd grade and 4th grade as well. And like a certain program I was in middle school where I was only like a 2-letter grade class, which means like it was either like pass or fail. I didn't realize I was doing that program until my parents had told me that it was one. When I was diagnosed, I was mostly like 20 years old. You know, I had gone to see someone in, I want to say March. Like I left in March to go to a whole other like city, to go see like this specialist who would look over me and do like cognitive activities to like determine, you know, what exactly I had, like autism or ADHD, and like any other mental illness I was having, which I'll get into just like a little. And then like a few months later, like in August, we had a Zoom meeting together, and he informed me that I was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and post-traumatic stress disorder. I posted about it before, but yeah, I'll just briefly go over it because I feel like the post go into more detail about it. So with the cognitive activities and like the questions they were asking me and stuff, they determined that I did have both autism and ADHD combined type. So like with ADHD, there's like a hyperactive disorder part, and then there's a distracted disorder part. I have both, and it's really hard for me, especially like having autism as well on top of that, which like makes it kind of a handful for me. And so I have a really hard time getting to bed at night a lot of the times, to where like I need to take melatonin in order for me to go to sleep, because if I don't, then like I will stay awake till like 12 or 1 a.m. and then like finally fall asleep. But like by then it's like I get a little sleep, especially since I have to wake up early on weekdays now that I'm going to university. Another thing is that like even with everything that has happened in my life, you're probably wondering, you know, where were my parents in all of this? Like, what did they say? My parents did not really do anything about it. Even my mom, even like she was like really speculating that there was something with me. At some point during like middle school, my mental health had gotten so bad to where like I needed to see a therapist in like a different city than where I was living at the time every week. And because I was very like depressed and anxious a lot, and she like even speculated that I was on the spectrum, and they still didn't really do anything about it. Yeah, that was like, that's kind of the story of like my autism diagnosis and like living with undiagnosed autism, and how like really difficult that was. So yeah, that's the video. I don't really have anything else to say about it. That's just it. Yeah. Okay, anyways, if you like this, like it, subscribe if you want to see more videos. I post mostly animations and art here onto my channel, and I occasionally will do art live streams. So I would also like to give a thank you to my Patreon member, Jackal. Thank you for joining that. I also have commissions in the description, so like it's my Ko-Fi page if you want to see my commissions. I also have a shop where I post like adoptables as well. Anyways, that's it. Okay, goodbye. And you don't seem to